Welcome to Season 6 of The Good Pod. Today's podcast is presented by Dr. Barry Napier.
Leviticus is still valid. Some years ago I had a stream of ludicrous emails from a man who claimed to be a Christian, and for reasons known only to himself he worked for a gay centre and was clearly smitten by gay propaganda. He pretended to be a theological expert as well as an expert on homosexuality, but in reality he had no expertise at all. But his information came from only one source: homosexuals and their propaganda. He was very aggressive and insulting, and though I pointed him to non-Christian medical and scientific sources, he refused to even acknowledge them, let alone look at them. He was only interested in accepting and promoting the gay agenda. Overall, I doubt very much if he is a Christian, given his stance. At one point I asked him how he coped with the very clear condemnation of homosexuality in Leviticus. He bounced back in a most surreal way, warning me that I was myself condemned for telling lies, and insisting that if I adhered to the law I was in trouble. So what does Leviticus say? And why do I say that its condemnation of homosexuality still stands? Look at Leviticus 18, verse 22. It's very clear. It says, "Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is an abomination." Now in context we are told if anyone acts this way, the whole land is defiled and ready for judgment. So in other words, today we are allowing homosexuality in all its hues to run rampant through the entire world. That is our fault, and you must not accept it. In verse 25 we are told that the land vomits out its people who allow such activities to go unhindered. Furthermore, the souls that commit them shall be cut off from amongst their people. The person who says this is God himself, not Moses or one of the Hebrew leaders, well, what can you say about that? You either believe it or not. It is not then just a Mosaic law. The person who thought he was capable of argumentation read a Strong's entry for to know, and insisted that it only meant what it said, to come to know. I pointed out that reading a Strong's entry does not make a man a theologian. All he could hope to get from reading a Strong's entry is an isolated meaning. It does not give the interpretation. Clouded by his own delusion, he could not understand that there can be many meanings for a single word, in both Greek and Hebrew. Very often, if you do not know about Hebrew idioms, you will fail to apply the correct interpretation. In the case of to know, found in the incident in Sodom, when the inhabitants were willing to kill in order to know the angels, it means to sodomize them with great violence. The phrase to know is a Hebrew idiom meaning just that, to have sex with someone. To be ignorant of Hebrew idiomatic structures is to have a completely wrong idea. It is the same in Paul's letters. He tends to use many parallel statements and opposites. He was a trained Jewish thinker, and this is what he was familiar with. If we do not understand this, we will no doubt interpret a variety of his statements wrongly. What then does the text in Leviticus mean? And does it apply today? Firstly, what does shalt not lie, or shahab, mean? It can simply mean to lay down or to live somewhere. It can mean to be dead or to rest. But in this text, because of the context, it means to have sexual relations with someone. How can we tell? Because of the context. The verse continues, with mankind as with womankind. To lay with a woman obviously refers to sexual union. Therefore the interpretation is, you will not have sexual relations with a man or animals as you would with a woman. It refers to animals as well, if used as a noun, which is its use in this text. Of course, bestiality is just one variant within homosexuality, so homosexuality is not to be accepted, not in any form whatsoever. God tells us that homosexuality is an abomination, and today we can add trans, so-called, into that. It's repeated in Romans 1. An abomination, or to'eba, means something that is disgusting, abominable. It is unclean and wicked. An abomination can also refer to idolatry. Homosexuals like to twist this text to mean idolatry, but the text is qualified by the words "as with mankind," womankind, to mean men having sexual relations with other men. It is an abomination. Then we have the text in Leviticus 20, one text out of many, verse 13. If a man lie with mankind as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. The same death penalty is upon these, that's men or women, who commit bestiality. Romans 1 tells us that men lusted after other men as they did with women, and he calls it an unnatural act, that is, leaving the natural use of a woman. It is unseemly. But these men receive within themselves their just deserts, not just condemnation by God, but also diseases such as HIV and nowadays monkeypox, and many other diseases that are usually quite exotic and unusual in anyone. Today, of course, some are trying to come to the side of homosexuals and say, no, you mustn't say that monkeypox is a just desert from God. I think otherwise. Now, what's the answer? There can be no doubt that both Old and New Testaments condemn homosexuality. That is, homosexuality whether it's men or women. But homosexuals force the idea that the Old Testament no longer applies. This is a grave error and a definite lie. The words in Leviticus were spoken by God himself. This is very important. All of Scripture tells us that God never lies and never changes his mind. Mosaic laws might change, but God's laws never change. It should be noted too that Leviticus contains not just Mosaic laws just for the Jews, but also universal laws to be kept for all time. I hope to produce a book on that at sometime soon. The laws against homosexual sin are universal laws, therefore. Now, if God never changes and never goes back on his word, what he says in Leviticus about this situation stands for all time. Thus, what he condemns in the Old Testament remains condemned in the New Testament and to the end of time itself. Therefore, with very simple biblical logic, we can show that God condemned homosexuality in the past and continues to condemn it in the present and into the future. Ignorant Christians do not have the freedom or the biblical sanction to change what God says.